permit me here and now to promise as a good comrade and a fellow artist that I will not report any of this, whatever it is, to the police.
Welcome to Abandoned Albums, the documentary podcast. Each week, our intrepid group of researchers and music archivists dig through the record crates of the world, finding those albums that may have been lost over time. If a new artist is discovered along the way, that's all the better. Using a patent-pending algorithm and spirited debate, we pick one album to discuss. Once that is settled, we will invite the artists to Thunderlove Studio to chat with your host, Keith R. Higgins. When we're lucky, they say yes. Our mission with Abandoned Albums is simple: to make sure artists' recorded work remains, or in some cases, lands on, the cultural radar. We invite you to sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us.
By the phone, fooling myself and just wasting time, wishing you were mine. And I'm mad at the world, cause you went away, left me here to stay. And it's breaking my heart that somebody new gets to be with you. Oh, why can't I be him and be with you again? To heaven to hold, girl, I'll keep you from the cold. Oh, why can't I be here?
When I first conceived the idea of abandoned albums, I was on the hunt for bands like Shufflepuck, bands that had been signed to a record label, and for whatever reason, the album was shelved and never released. Adam and Justin of Shufflepuck stopped by a couple of weeks ago to share their unique story with us. And boy howdy, it's quite a story. We also discussed the new Generation Blue project they're participating in. There is a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Adam and Justin of Shufflepuck.
It's just the normal noises in here.
Adam, Justin, thank you guys for joining me today to chat a little bit.
Thank you, Keith. It's exciting.
First time Shufflepuck podcast. At least one that we've been on.
I'll be gentle with you guys, I promise.
These didn't exist when we were a band.
Not as such. Maybe there was recorded audio. Nonetheless, the web was barely a thing. Earlier this week, I was telling Adam before you jumped on, Justin, I'm an advocate for AI, so I use it frequently in almost every part of my life. One of the things I did when I was researching Shuttlepuck was I asked Chat GPT, what is geek rock? I'm going to read.
You should probably start that over again because you said the band name incorrectly.
What did I say?
You said shuttle.
Shuffle. Jesus Christ. I might actually just say that in Shufflepuck. I apologize. I don't know why.
I'd answer to that. It's all right.
So I asked, what is geek rock? This is what it gave me. Geek rock is a musical genre that draws heavily on geek culture and themes, focusing on topics that are of interest to geeks, such as science fiction, fantasy, technology, and academic subjects. The genre is known for its witty lyrics, eclectic sound, and the use of electronic instruments alongside traditional rock instrumentation. Geek rock bands often have a devoted following within geek communities, and their music is seen as a celebration of geekiness in all its forms. Geek rock is not just a musical genre. It's also a reflection of culture that celebrates intelligence, creativity, and a deep passion for niche interests. It's a genre that has grown alongside the internet and digital culture, finding a widespread audience through online communities and platforms. Justin, let's start with you. What say you to that definition?
Well, there's a term that's been thrown around a lot recently that I'm not sure we used very often when we were referring to Shufflepuck, but I'm awfully glad that we get thrown in with a bunch of other bands that do fit under that heading.
Okay.
We would say we're a rock band. A lot of people would say, what are those geeks doing over there? But we were a rock band.
I would be inclined to agree with that, because that's what I heard when I listened to the record. Here's guitarist and lead singer Adam Orth.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty much the exact opposite of what we were, and also the exact opposite of what our goal and manifesto was. We actively moved away from that when we were a band, and
Really?
it was never part of what we wanted to do collectively, and what I wanted to say as a lyricist. And that was never any goal of ours. Our goal was to be, at the end of the day, I think our goal was to be what you would see, like what the Foo Fighters or Green Day are now, right? And I never sang songs that were very clearly in the the description that you read there. That was never the thing. It was pretty angsty stuff, a little bit more aggressive and pissed off about some stuff, but never moving into darkness. It was always big, aggressive songs with big pop hooks, and we made no bones about wanting to be on the radio and wanting to play big shows at big places and have people singing our songs back to us in a way that I don't think matches up with geek rock at all. No. And if you had told me that when I was in the band, when we were doing it, it would have pissed me off even more.
It begs the question, did you have an actual manifesto? Because I know some bands are like, no, this is what we want. This is how we want to present ourselves. Did you have anything like that? Like even written out, or was it just sort of a meeting of the minds?
Not written out, but it was inside us inherently, and that was our chemistry, right? We grew up on Kiss, Van Halen, AC/DC, and of course, everyone grew up with the Beatles. But then you find Cheap Trick and Elvis Costello, and that was the edge, right? It was trying to marry, even though Kurt Cobain has said we were just Cheap Trick, the goal really was marrying the Beatles and Nirvana and Cheap Trick and kind of Van Halen into these big pop songs.
The tea comes with boba.
Well, it doesn't, because I see the tea right there and I see the boba over there. So why don't we just not combine them? Yeah? So I'll take the tea without the covert diabetes delivery mechanism, please.
The system won't let me do that.
Okay. Yeah, no, fine. One boba, please. We'll call it a mental health day treat. Self-care, right? Isn't that what people call it whenever they need an excuse to do whatever the fuck they want?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, of course you don't. Of course you don't. One chewy sugar tea, please.
Let's go back to the beginning of your origin story. You guys are, I only know this because we've chatted about it a little bit. You're from Connecticut. Were you guys childhood friends? Did you play t-ball together and soccer and all that?
Absolutely.
I often say I've known Adam longer than anyone else on the planet. But we've known each other since we were 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. our hometown of Storrs, Connecticut was a small place, and you basically would run into everyone there over and over again. But, since then we spread out and ended up in LA together and known each other ever since.
Storrs, Connecticut. I associate that with the University of Connecticut. Were your folks part of academia?
Yeah, mine were. My parents were professors.
Okay, that makes sense.
My dad had a slight midlife crisis, and he was thinking he was going to go back to school for something besides the engineering degree that he had, and so he ended up in Storrs. And even after the few classes he was taking at night, we just ended up staying there. They loved being far away from the cities, out in the woods, and enjoying outdoor activities and stuff. They just fell in love with that town.
Awesome.
We had an idyllic childhood in that town. I mean, it was incredible. It completely informed. I'm not going to speak for Justin, but I probably could. But it completely informed, who we are today. And eventually, when in sixth grade, when I'm at Rivers, Cuomo, obviously, then we had this trio. It was very inseparable. We did everything together and we experienced everything together. And it really, kind of informed everything, honestly.
Did you guys discover music at the same time?
We're talking about middle school era when our group of friends were discovering music, especially heavy metal in general, in the early mid 80s. There was constantly something new that was even more exciting than the thing that someone brought in a week ago,
Yeah, but I think even more importantly, all three of us, eventually when we came together, but separately, music was part of our family's lives.
Oh,
from the beginning, big time. I grew up listening to classical music and folk music and Steely Dan and the Grateful Dead and the Beatles and whatever my parents had. So I discovered my own music very early. I would say, third and fourth grade, I was buying records and listening to music. My first record that I bought on my own was Kiss Alive. But I remember having, I don't know how I got it, but one of those K-Tel Solid Gold Hits records. Mm-hmm. And it had Rosanna and We Are the Champions on it. Nice. And those were I distinctly remember those songs being the spark, essentially.
Yeah.
To go off.
The one K-Tel album I recall had The Boys Are Back in Town, and that just lit my fire. That lit me up. Still does.
I hate that song so much.
Do you really?
I hate that song so much.
Love that song.
I don't like Thin Lizzy. I never got into Thin Lizzy.
That's okay.
But I also think that the song has been used so terribly in the decades since in commercials and animated movies that it feels very watered down. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have gone off on that, but I don't like that song.
Yeah, I think people probably would associate that one with us, though, with the double lead guitar solos, and just the upbeat lyrics. And
that's another reason why I hate that song.
Justin, do you remember the first album you bought?
It was so late compared to everyone else. I listened to nothing but my dad's albums until I probably bought Men at Work. Business as Usual was my first album.
That's not a bad one.
But that was also maybe the first time I turned on the radio when we were 12 or 13. Before that, it was just my dad's record collection, which was the Beatles and the Stones and the Eagles and Boston, Lynyrd Skynyrd and stuff. But for whatever reason, that was enough, and I never even listened to what. It may be because radio in Connecticut was pretty limited. And so whenever you would turn it on, it was mostly some sappy, slow songs or dance music that I was just not into at the time. And Beatles and the Stones sounded way better to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also Justin's home life was a bit different than most of the people in our neighborhood because he kind of lived on a quasi farm, right? And there was a lot of like, you know,
I spent most of my time outside in the woods or down by the river or whatever.
So did I. So did I.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't pry too deeply into that. It's not.
Oh, it's fine. Fine. But my dad was in rock bands in the 60s, and so his record collection was pretty strong. You know, like he was playing in New York in early 60s, getting to see that part of rock and roll like happening firsthand, you know. So he's playing in the Village and in an originals band in 63. Meanwhile, also putting himself through college, playing upstate in like frat parties and stuff, playing all those songs you've heard on the radio since then, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
He
pretty
didn't
cool.
talk about it very often. When I would kind of confront him on it, he was like, well, you know, like if I had made different choices back then, I might not be here. I know you wouldn't be here, but I don't know if I would be here either. So let's not talk much about it.
Interesting. So the three of you are pals in Connecticut. You're all three guitar players predominantly. I mean, you might play other instruments, but as near as I can tell, you all three play guitar.
Well, Rivers was a drummer in the first band that Adam and I were in together.
really?
Well, I think we need to back up a little bit. So the thing that really bonded us together is Kiss, right?
Yes.
The impact that band had on us at that early stage in our lives is immeasurable. Like, you know, the first time I went to Rivers' house to hang out with him, it wasn't about music. Excuse me. We met because of a mutual interest in comic books and Dungeons and Dragons. And the first time I went to hang out at his house, we drew a comic book together. And my memory is a little bit hazy on this one, but first of all, his room was the most amazing shrine to Kiss with all these cool, like all these Japanese posters that were like rare and weird, and a wall was covered with Kiss stuff. And I'm pretty sure that was the case that first day when I went over to his house. But from then on, it became like, you know, that's where we hung out a lot. And having all of this Kiss imagery and the music, and just like it took over our lives for a very long time.
Yeah, you had mentioned that it's a big part of your story, and the way you feel about Thin Lizzy is the way I feel about Kiss.
You could say that. That's all right.
Yeah, I don't get it. It just never resonated with me. We're all around the same age. It never resonated with me. I don't know what it was. How did this influence you so much?
I'll just go real quick. And then Justin can say, but like for me, it was this incredible theatrical escape, and the music also hit me at a time where, you know, I'm starting to think about girls, which is a big part of Kiss, but also the most important part of Kiss that unless you're like a real Kiss fan that people don't understand, Kiss is about like being true to yourself and not letting anything stand in your way. That's like the core element of Kiss. It's not like dumb songs about girls. There are those. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of those. But Kiss is really about this true belief in yourself. And you can hear it in songs like Shout It Out Loud. If you read the lyrics to Shout It Out Loud, it's like, it's about truth, and it's about understanding yourself and not settling for anything. It was a really important message for me. And they created these worlds with their albums. Like, every album was kind of a little different, and picking up those album covers, like, you just get lost in them for forever. So Kiss was, like, for me, about a bonding thing, but also telling me that I can do whatever I want to do in my life. That was a big thing for me. And then from then on, I just wanted to be Ace Frehley.
I hope you've outgrown that, because I don't know if you've seen Ace lately.
I'll never say a single bad word about Ace Frehley.
You just put out a new album. People like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. How about you, Justin? Did Kiss have the same impact?
The thing that I really drew from Kiss right away was listening to Kiss Alive 1 and 2 over and over again, and just the feel of, and I know how much craft was put into creating those albums, but the feel of being at a live show, that is the pure excitement and adrenaline you feel with, being in a huge crowd, listening to this monster music, and there's explosions in the middle of the songs, and something I always wanted to be in the middle of, from the minute I heard those songs on,
Wow.
Yeah.
And that thread continued, all the way into LA, all the way into every minute of Shufflepuck, which
every minute,
literally every minute. I don't think there was really ever a show that we played where we either didn't play a little bit of a Kiss song or a full Kiss song. Like, we actually were pretty well known in LA for playing the song Strutter. Like, that was like, people actually like looked forward to that moment in our set. And that thread continued into actually unwittingly meeting Kiss and hanging out with them. And, and it's continued into my life. I've worked for Kiss a little bit here and there on video games and stuff like that. So it's been a constant thread.
Tell us more about that meeting Kiss and hanging out with them early in the career.
We were so excited. It was so amazing. Okay, so when we actually crossed paths with Kiss,
remember what I told you? He tells a worse version of this than I do.
No, like right when we meet them for the first time is right when they are kind of redefining themselves again. First, they're going to come back and do the acoustic show for MTV. And it's the first time they're going to play with Peter and Ace. And they're rehearsing 4 doors down from us in the same building.
Oh, wow.
And we have video of us like sneaking down the hall just to listen in at the door. We were just like kids in a toy store. It was so incredible.
Oh, that's cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. This was like early 1996.
Yeah.
And we used to practice at this rehearsal space in Hollywood, very well-known place called Cole Rehearsal. I don't even know if I'm sure it's not there anymore, but
not there. I look at it all the time.
It was the place, and we were very well liked at this place, and we had this lockout, and our label, Interscope Records, was paying for the lockout. So we had a place to practice. Why we practiced in Hollywood instead of where we lived on the West Side, I don't know. But it was a cool place, and it was kind of like a scene and whatever. So one day we're in there and we hear people playing these like weird old Kiss songs. And, we're immediately offended because that's our deal. Like, stop it. Right. So like, we kind of like, whatever, didn't pay attention to it. And then I go down the hallway. We take a break because we're practicing also. I go down the hallway to take a piss, and I'm at the urinal, and, someone else comes in. You don't, the law is you don't look at the person standing next to you. But I did, and it was Paul Stanley. And I mean, I almost lost my mind. And then I realized, oh, Kiss is rehearsing here. But why are they playing those songs? And then we figured it out, and it was like, it was them. And they were rehearsing in this shitty armpit in Hollywood. It was so bizarre. Like, I don't even know why they were doing it there, but they were there, and they were there for a long time. And we would go in on days we weren't practicing and sit in our lockout just to listen to the original 4 guys getting back together. And we knew before, like, we knew. It was so crazy. And we ended up like befriending them. And, you know, we went to Ace Frehley's birthday bowling party, and like we bowled with Kiss. And
the most amazing thing would be when they would start a new song that we knew by heart, and they'd be like actually rehearsing it and practicing it and messing up, and we'd be like, oh my gosh, it goes like this. Let me get this right.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, so that's it. That feels fairly triumphant. And there's a number of other times that we actually cross paths, and we seem to be on a track to be, you know, really, really breaking into the music industry right with Kiss at the same time. It seems like this incredible rocket to the top for us.
Yeah, it was a very...
We're going to talk about the fact that our album that we subsequently have recorded gets pushed back. But we were going to, on our first release date, we were going to open for Kiss when they put their makeup back on for the first time at the Forum. Like, that was really, really where we were heading. We were 2 weeks away from that happening.
Oh, my gosh.
We were on the bill up until 2 weeks before that. So,
I don't want to talk about that. I literally do not want to talk about that.
Wow.
In a weird thing, so we were on the best label in the music business at that time, Interscope Records. We played Jimmy Iovine's Christmas party, the Interscope Christmas party one year. And it was us and No Doubt. They were label mates with us, and they were, I mean, they had a record out already. People knew who they were in California. Mm-hmm. They hadn't broken through yet with Tragic Kingdom. So it was like right before Tragic Kingdom came out.
Yeah.
And it was like this Christmas party, and they rented this huge, like, airplane hangar, and it was like, you know, we were on a stage, like it basically felt like a Van Halen stage, you know, both bands playing, and we were gonna play, and then No Doubt would play, and then so we got there and we're ready, but they told us we can't play until Jimmy gets there because it's his party, and he took a long ass time to get there. And during that time, we drank a lot of Jägermeister.
Oh, lot
of Jägermeister. And finally, he showed up and we started our set, and it wasn't going poorly, but we weren't at our best. And we started playing a Kiss song, and then I looked out not too far past the stage, and Gene Simmons was standing there. And I don't know how this happened, but he climbed up on stage, and our bass player, Ed, I'll never forget this, was just looking at him like, what the hell is going on? He gave him his bass, and we played 2 songs with Gene.
Wow.
on the stage. Yeah, Deuce and Strutter. It was great.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
Adam's forgetting the part where he went, look down there, and he sees Gene, and he just starts shouting like, Gene Simmons, and it's echoing across this huge chamber.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true. People were in the audience were egging him on too.
And Gene Simmons gets up and he goes, all right, what are the chords?
Yeah.
and our bass player, who is also like maybe even more of a fanatic than we are, is like pointing out on the fretboard the notes of the song we're about to play.
And then he went down, and then he went and sat down cross-legged on the stage and just like watched this whole thing happen.
And Gene Simmons goes into a whole show. And I mean, he's really digging in with us. It was so exciting.
I can't help but wonder, like, if that took place today, everyone would have their phones out. It would be all over social media. It would be a thing, you know?
Well, okay. So that is something that happened that like anyone doing anything in the public eye today, there's record of it. There's very little record of the things that Adam and I did with this band, except in our memories.
Don't I know it? I had to research you guys. I want to take it back one step from the Interscope, because in the book, in the accompanying book that's accompanying Generation Blue, which we'll get to in a little bit, Adam, you say it was obvious you were going to get a record deal. What did those signs look like to you?
Well, so at that time in Los Angeles, if you were a good band, it wasn't that hard to get a record deal. We definitely had extra cards in our hand that other bands didn't have. Obviously, our proximity to Weezer was not a bad thing, although it never really. It ended up. We ended up. You know, we earned our stuff, you know, on our own, but it didn't hurt. I mean, we had some great times opening up big shows for them. Mm-hmm. But what we also had was, first and foremost, an incredibly strong set of songs.
Yeah.
Very strong set of songs and really good demos. And also our bass player happened to work at Interscope Records.
Oh, really?
And
before that, A&M.
And before that, A&M. So also, you know, we were really plugged into the record industry in a way that a lot of other bands were, but it just seemed very simple for us. And we worked that really, I would say, not too hard, because I got to say that the whole thing happened so easily for us. And the way it worked was, you know, we built up a little following around LA. You know, the first show we played on a Tuesday night at like 1:30 in the morning at this little place called Hell's Gate. And the only people in that place besides the band was a bartender and some fish in a fish tank. Like no one was there. But we persisted because we had a system. And that system was, I'm going to stay home and write songs and work on the band at night, because I hated flyering, hated it. And Justin is incredible at that stuff. And he was like the social magnet for all of that for our band. So he would go out at night and go to all the clubs and work getting us gigs and blah, blah, blah. So we, through those divided efforts, we were able to start playing shows, and then people started responding to us. And then, you know, our bass player worked at the record label that had all of the great bands of that time on it. And we wanted to be on that label so bad that it wasn't even like a question. Like it wasn't like, who are we going to sign to? It was, when are we going to sign to Interscope? Like that was the goal. And our bass player, Ed, worked as an assistant to this guy, Brian Huttenauer, who he had moved over to Interscope with from A&M. And Brian Huttenauer had signed Soundgarden, and a bunch of other incredible bands that you would know. I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Gin Blossoms, Extreme.
Yeah,
Oh.
Extreme, Gin Blossoms, like really good shit, right? And so, we hung out at Interscope a lot. And, I was very persistent with the A&R people at Interscope, and they started listening to our demos. And this guy, Brian, who signs, Soundgarden or whatever, he finally, I wore him down. It was awkward for Ed because he didn't really want to abuse his position, but we worked it. And I remember sitting in his office, and he finally was like, all right, you guys are really popular around town. People are talking about you. We used to be in this magazine called Hits Magazine, which was an industry magazine. It's still around. And we used to get, like, the whole goal back then was to get mentioned in that, like, Wheels and Deals column as much as possible. And one day, sitting in that office, this guy Brian says to me, he's like, all right, I like you guys. Go out and get a record deal and see what you can get, and I'll double it.
What?
Yeah, he said, go out, work the industry, get the best thing you can get, and I'll double it. And we're not in touch with Brian anymore. Brian's had some struggles in his life, but I never did that. I basically lied to him. I said, "Oh, all right, we did that. We're ready." And then we were on Interscope. It was like, it wasn't much harder than that, unless I'm forgetting something, Justin.
Oh, there's some steps before that, but it was an incredibly exciting time to be in a band. And I'm pretty sure Adam was feeling that in LA, we have just watched our friends do the thing that you feel is obvious. You create a band, you create a buzz, you play good shows, and you get a record deal. And we had just watched our friends go through that. And this scene existed. There was a fan base, and there were clubs to play at, and they were ready for more bands like Weezer. So
yeah, we call it the blueprint, and we followed it to a T. Although we did have that, like I said, that the ace in our hand with Interscope. But
no, we mentioned
and we had a bunch of labels interested.
We mentioned the Generation Blue project already in that oral history, and the bands that are on that vinyl comp. We all have a chance to play these shows around this time, and it's really, really exciting to be a band like us.
And I've interviewed a bunch of folks from LA and who came of age as a band or artist in LA. And the one thing they mention often is this sense of camaraderie among the artists. And every time I've heard that from somebody I'm speaking with, it's counterintuitive to me, because I would envision there being competition, but there has not been one artist who has said it was competitive at all. And even in the Rat Book, they were best friends with, the guys in Motley Crue. They had their own gang.
Look, it's the same. It's the same, right? We had a scene of people that we kind of traveled around with. But I think for some of the bands, it was, friendship and sceneship and being in that part. But there was never a part where we weren't going to shows of those bands with the whole goal of destroying them and wiping the stage with their bleeding carcasses.
Thank you. That is an answer I can appreciate, and then
we would say that. We said, okay, we're about to go on, like, time to rip this place apart. And that was our goal every time. Every time we played a show, no matter where it was or who we were playing with, it was, nobody's going to remember any of the other bands but us.
All these bands that we're saying we're going to tear apart, we love those bands too. Huge.
Sure.
Yeah,
fans
it wasn't
that
like we
we're
did.
playing with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Justin, before you got on, I was telling Adam that your album is what I originally conceived the show to be about. I wanted to find those records by artists who had been on a major label, recorded a major label album, but it got shelved for whatever reason, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of through it. I just sort of morphed into what it is today. But I want to point out that this is exactly what I envisioned the show to be, because your album was never released and your A&R guy just disappeared.
That was a scary moment for a bunch of 25-year-olds.
I'd
He
imagine.
disappears while had just, gone into this major recording studio, and we say, now what? What do we do? How, we've worked so hard to get to this point, but now here's this big question mark. And so, Interscope says, just turn in a good album. So that was our new focus from that point on. But it's really hard not having your knight in shining armor at the
beginning.
What's that?
I was like, that kind of the focus from the beginning too, though, making a great record.
Oh, sure.
But once we lost, our knight in shining armor at the record label, the guy that was going to push for us there,
that was it.
Our relationship with the label became really muddled.
Yeah.
But it took a whole year, like maybe the worst year of our lives, for that.
Up until that point,
waiting
for sure.
and waiting, and we had 6 release dates that got pushed back, and
it was like 4, but we had the record was done, all the promo stuff, it was all done. The single was chosen.
Yeah.
Although there was a lot of debate about what the first single was going to be. And
I have this beautiful moment where S.W. Loudon, AKA our good friend Steve, well into working out the Generation Blue project, finally says, I have a test pressing. I have the first vinyl test pressing for this compilation album. And he said, I don't have the opportunity right now to give it a good listen. I have to give an answer to the record company. I have to tell Big Stir whether this master is good enough to press. And he said, can you listen to it? It was so incredible. The only time I could get free to give it the attention it needed was about 4:30 in the morning when the house is quiet. There's nothing else, weighing down on me. And I get out my daughter's record player because she's the only one that has one. I put on this vinyl. It's totally blank. Put it on, turn it on, drop the needle, and it's a Shufflepuck song that's never existed in the world.
So many times, and I can't erase it from my mind today. Someone like her so hard to find, and 3,000 miles is just so far away. I call her on the phone, but she's not home, so
it's weird too, because vinyl was so not a thing when we were making our record that I've not heard any of our music on vinyl yet. I'm excited to hear it.
And the song that we're discussing is Where the Hell Is She?
Yeah.
Now that was, Adam, you just made reference to the single was chosen. Was that the original single? It was.
Yeah, I mean, there are CD singles of that fully packaged with artwork and everything. I think Interscope made like 50,000 of those things, maybe less. I have a box of them somewhere. And yeah, that was going to be the first single, which is like, that was kind of the first song also, really. There's
a point before the Interscope deal that what really put us on the map in Hollywood and what really gave us a bunch of, really got people's eyeballs on us beyond just our small circle of friends. So we did have a record deal before that. We got a 7-inch.
Right.
Some guys saw.
Oh, wait,
us.
I have heard our.
You have heard it, right? So,
right.
so rewind 3 months before our deal. We play a show at a really hot club in town. It was at the time. Was it Opium Den by that point, Adam?
Yep.
Do you remember?
Opium
Anyways, a couple of guys stayed late after the headlining act, and we put on a show, and half our gear had been sitting out in the rain before we got to go on, and so it's cutting out in the middle of the show. Most people had walked out, but these two guys somehow saw something they liked, and they wanted to start a new record label. So the owners of the brand new baby record label, Catapult Records, said, hey, we want to work with you guys. Let's put out a 7-inch. And 7-inch vinyl singles was a hot thing in the indie rock scene at the time.
Yeah.
Huge. Like if you didn't have a 7-inch single, you were basically a loser.
So it was so great because these guys were excited and we were excited. And we said, this is fantastic. We have our dreams set higher than this, but fantastic. Let's put something out. And they had just come out of like music business school at UCLA, and they hand us a 40-page record deal. And we said, no, that's not how we're going to do this. Come back with a 1-page deal and we'll do the thing together. Like, no, we can't do that. And we said, 1 page, do it. Let's make this thing happen. And they did. And not too long after that, we had these little 7-inch singles, and we were able to put them at a couple of the hot record stores in town. And it got us an awful lot of recognition. All of a sudden, people are like talking about us like we're just this one step closer to, being a real band that people are excited about.
You were a real band. You're just.
Yeah. What's interesting is there's 2 songs, one on each side of that 7-inch, and they're both the demo versions that would, eventually be re-recorded professionally. Not that the demo versions were not recorded unprofessionally.
Right.
But they were, that was our calling card. It was Where the Hell Is She and Fool Like Me on the other side.
She thinks I'm serious, but I'm just too shy to be delirious when she walks by. And I don't mind telling her what she does to me, but I just can't find the nerve to dance with these cold feet. So I run away, my tail between my legs. I'm thinking it's okay, 'cause what would she want with a fool like me?
We had like album quality demos, very, very high quality, recorded at this studio in Santa Monica called 4th Street Recording with this guy, Jim Wirt. And I had actually gotten a job there pretty close after moving to LA. And boy, I got some stories from working in that place. But that's another podcast. But he immediately saw the songs, and he ended up, helping me and producing our album.
Yeah.
And we recorded a lot of the album at this incredible, like the legendary record plant in Hollywood, which is like, you know, we were signed on Interscope Records and we were recording, you know, we were signed on Interscope Records. We were extremely popular band. We're making this album at this legendary studio, the best of the best, working with the best people. Sounds fucking amazing. And then we did like all the basic tracks and mostly drums. The record plant was really mostly about the drums. And then we did all the overdubs, like the guitars. Actually, I'm mistaken. All Ed and Keith did all of their bass and drums live together. And we kept the drums, and Ed polished up the bass here and there. And then we did all the guitars and the vocals back in Santa Monica at 4th Street.
While we were recording at the record plant, Quincy Jones is next door, and AC/DC is down the hall. I mean, we were really in the thick of, you know, the places we had been dreaming of ever since we were kids. You know?
Yeah, I got assigned. I went and bugged AC/DC. I got assigned CD of For Those About to Rock by the band that recorded it. All 5 guys.
That's incredible.
I lost it.
Such an amazing time to be us, actually.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like everything, all signs pointed to success.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. I mean,
yeah.
You got
we're talking about a year and a half, like, you know, from Adam and I starting, you know, searching for the first member to join us in this band to this point of recording the album. You know,
it was very fast.
It was rocket.
Yeah. Did Interscope notify you that they weren't going to release it, or did they just sort of do the passive aggressive, just keep pushing the release date back until finally you threw up your arms and were like, fuck it?
I mean, that's kind of what happened, but it was a little more complicated than that. And the complication was we were a baby band, unproven, with a great record that they were totally actually behind. And we actually moved from this guy, Brian, our A&R guy who left the company, to Tom Wally. And Tom Wally is like a legendary A&R guy, still doing it today. He's one of the most legendary guys there. And he really liked us. And he was committed to us. However, the thing that got us was the incredible amount of success that the label was having at that time. No doubt. Toadies, Wallflowers, 9 Inch Nails, plus all the Death Row stuff. Interscope was a very small record company. There weren't a ton of people working there. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I would say there definitely weren't more than 50 people working there, right? It was a very small, but, you know, I'm probably forgetting some bands too. Rocket from the Crypt, just tons of bands all exploding at the same time. Like, we're waiting on our second release, and all of a sudden the Wallflowers are exploding, right? Right, No Doubt, Toadies.
Yeah.
You know, we were there with all of that, and they just, you know, they couldn't keep a release date because something else was always happening. And one day, after, you know, a lot of frustration, a lot of complaining on our part, you know, I don't remember who was with me, but I was in Tom Wally's office. You might have been with me, Justin. I'm not sure. And he's like, look, you guys, you know, it's been a year at this point, right? We just had this insane, like, rocket from nothing to finished record, you know, the best of the best, like I said. It happened so fast. And then we sat around for a year. I mean, we didn't sit around. We played shows. We wrote more songs. Like, we were not inactive in any way, but because we were just waiting, right? And release dates would come and they would go. You know, we can't do it. We got to wait till, you know, next month or next quarter, or like, you know, this band's blowing up right now. That's totally legitimate. I don't.
Is it? I got to push back on that.
I'm telling you,
they have their rhyme and reason, I'm sure, but I don't know. It just.
I'll tell you what. If I
released 2 records on the same day.
Yeah, but like, it would have been stupid to put Shufflepuck and the Toadies out at the same time.
Correct.
Right. So
one of our release dates got pushed back because there was a band on like a subsidiary label that was like a darling from Bush, right? And it was that song "Sitting in."
Oh yeah, Bush. I forgot Bush was in the mix too.
One of our really important release dates. We had tours set up, or we had shows set up. We were like, it had nearly happened, and I guess Gavin Rosdale or someone from the Bush camp calls up and says, "Hey, we have this band on our imprint label, and we want you to push this on." That's as easy it was to knock us off the list for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
Well, look, I mean, but that's, I'm telling you, it's not like there was a bunch of people sitting around like, you know,
yeah, they were busy. They had tons of.
It was insane. Going into that office around that time was electric. There was so much stuff happening at that time. Like, I don't really begrudge Interscope for this at all, because the way it very much ended up in our favor, right? Like, so, you know, our guy Brian flames out. He's gone. We're with Tom Wally. He's committed to us. But, you know, I'm getting pissed off at this point. And so I have this meeting with Tom, and he's like, "Look, it's not going to happen this year, and I can't tell you when it's going to happen." And I was like, you know,
that's not what you want to hear from the president of the label.
Yeah.
26 or 27 years old, waiting for the rocket to take off with this, what we think is an album made for radio, which it was, like, specifically.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to hear that at all. And I was very vocal about not wanting to hear that. But he was a cool guy, and he gave me the option of, you know, you can stay here and wait it out. We're happy to do this. Or we will give you your masters for your record with no strings attached and give you a bunch of money. And you can literally go across the street to another record company and hand them this record that they'll be glad to have. And you're on your way. Now,
that must be why the guy's a legend. One of the reasons.
Very cool.
Now, what was happening right at the same time was truly what killed us. While we were signed and waiting for that year, the Prodigy broke, and all of a sudden, nobody in the industry wanted to hear a guitar. Not interested. Where's your fucking Mohawk and your keyboards and your crazy, you know, drum and bass stuff? Like, it was like literally overnight. It was an overnight thing. That, combined with, we went to every other label in town who wanted us before, and they didn't want us anymore because they and everyone else in the industry perceived that we were dropped. So we were damaged goods. We were not dropped. We, you know, I had these, you know, I had the 2-inch master tapes.
Adam is saying this straight up, but really the idea in the music industry at the time was that electronic music and electronica in general was going to wipe the face of music out, just like Nirvana had taken heavy metal and thrown it away. electronica was going to do the same thing with live music. And everyone was really, really thought that in January of 1997. You know?
Yeah.
People have been sounding the death knell for rock and roll.
For sure.
For decades.
Yeah, we didn't obviously believe that. Like,
yeah.
It'd be stupid to sit there and be doing what we're doing and be like, oh, one kind of music is going to rule everything. Like, that wasn't the case. But all of a sudden, it was really hard to get shows because people started bringing keyboards. Nothing against keyboards, but, you know, there were a lot less guitars.
And even more than just like the rock clubs are still there, but the record industry itself is, for the most part, they're trying to follow trends. And in the short period of time that we're trying to take our masters to somewhere and say, hey, we have this amazing album, let's put it out. In that little window of time, everyone was thinking that there was going to be this huge change. And they're like, oh.
So I was, yeah.
Did anyone did anyone bring a keytar?
No. We could have changed everything.
Yeah, it was really demoralizing, and all of a sudden we went from being really popular to like, we're not doing rock shows or whatever right now. And that was really tough on us because we were sitting on gold or maybe even platinum, who knows? But like, you know, it was really hard, and we felt it was incredibly demoralizing because we didn't do anything wrong, right? We didn't like flame out or make a bad record or, you know, punch a record executive in the face or anything like that. It was just like this kind of like terrible perfect storm of things that happened. And then from that, things got pretty dark. Like, you know, like, so we all still wanted to play music, and most of us still wanted to continue the band. But I didn't. I was frustrated, and I felt like, you know, I felt really betrayed by like the industry and the world a little bit. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, I wasn't like sitting in the corner, like in a fetal position or anything like that, but I still wanted to make music. And I thought, well, you know, I got to keep going, and maybe this band isn't the thing. And I proposed breaking the band up, and the other Justin and Ed and Keith did not want to do that at all. And they fought me really hard. This is stupid. Don't do this. And they, you know, they basically freezed me out and they wouldn't let me do it. And that conversation went on for months. And then, you know, the story kind of ends with, you know, me constantly saying, I don't want to do this anymore, and not feeling like I wasn't being heard. Right. But really, truthfully, looking back on it, you know, it was selfish ambition because, you know, I had a publishing deal at the time, right? In addition to a record deal, I got this really like crazy publishing deal, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna start over. And I thought, well, you know, I mean, it's one of the hugest regrets in my life going this route. But, you know, I just really felt like they weren't like, I just didn't want to do it. And I kept saying, I don't want to do it. And they were like, we're doing it, you know? And I ended up breaking the band up on stage right before a final song at a show, which, you know, was stupid, like absolutely stupid. It felt like cool and rebellious in the moment, but I just really felt like they were not listening to me. But what really was happening was I was not listening to them. And I should have listened to them because it would have been fine. We would have been fine. Because not long after that, everything was normal and fine again. And, it absolutely cost me the friendship of two people in the band, which honestly have not really been repaired until about a week ago.
Oh, wow.
Here's something very exciting.
Do share.
From the moment Adam's talking about where the band gets broken up on stage in front of a packed audience of all of our friends and playing with our friends' bands and stuff, because our good friend Steve has put together the Generation Blue project in general, and a groundswelling of excitement has come up from all those groups that were part of that scene. They're all still here. And there is a show coming up to commemorate the release of the project that looks almost exactly like a show from 1996.
Wow.
So Rydell High and the Campfire Girls and Shufflepuck. Seeing that bill is really incredible. And it's watching it come together, watching people get excited, watching like the names pop up in your inbox is so amazing. And it's going to be the first time we've seen those guys in one room together since that night. I'm excited.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
So gosh, it's those four members.
Those four members.
Yep.
And not just us, but the original lineup of the Campfire Girls and Steve's band Rydell High with the old singer that moved here from Connecticut with us, Kevin Rydell.
Oh, really? How many nutmeg people went out there?
All
Actually,
of them. They all came out at least once.
Not including music, like most of our close friends who we grew up with all live in Los Angeles. It's so weird. Like we're all here.
At least they were out here for a little bit at some point. I think we opened the door for like this idea that you could come to LA. There's a bridge from Storrs, Connecticut to LA right now. So come over and check it out.
Just to close a thought on the breaking up of the band. There isn't a day that's really gone by where I haven't thought, well, I should just do a George Costanza, and just keep pretend it never happened. Like nobody would have cared if we just scheduled another show and kept playing. Like it would have been like, someone had some drinks last show or whatever. Like it was stupid. It was so dumb, and it was so immature, right? It's so immature on my part. And, we had it like, I won't go into the details, but like our drummer, Keith, had like responsibilities and relied on the income of the band, to meet those responsibilities. And, like I just didn't think about all that stuff because I was focused on figuring it all out. And, it's just, it seems so stupid in the rearview mirror, just like absolutely stupid. But it's cool that, we're going to play this show coming up, and it's pretty funny. Like there's actually a Shufflepuck text group now that hasn't existed ever before. And it was like stepping right into the same shoes. Like it didn't feel like any time had elapsed or we ever broke up or anything like that. So we'll see what happens.
It's going to be neat to walk into that room together for the first time again. That's going to be pretty special.
That's awesome. Sure. That's the weird thing about getting older. You get smarter, or at least more sympathetic, empathetic. You understand a little bit more than you did. I certainly do. Can't speak for everybody.
Oh, look, I mean, after that happened, Justin and I never separated. That we were,
right.
That never happened. But, I completely destroyed the friendships of those two other guys. And we were a very tight group of people, very tight. And, it's it's just like, we all went on and lived our lives, right? We've all been successful at different things since then, right? But it's just like, I didn't want to do a new show. I didn't want to do it. And Justin is pretty expertly,
You just say I maneuvered you into it?
Yeah, he tuned the knobs all in the right way, right? I mean, I still feel a little bit weird about it, but it's I don't think it'll be more than closure. We all have lives, and I don't, being a rock band is a young person's game, unless you've been doing it successfully, since then. But
somebody tell Mick Jagger that, please.
Well, I guess he's the exception, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I don't foresee anything more happening with that, other than what I was telling you before we started, which is the album is going to be slightly remastered and reformatted in really pristine digital, new digital copies, lossless for streaming platforms, and it will come out in the area of when this project is all happening.
That's great news.
Yeah, so it'll be first time available on all streaming platforms. I get contacted about this album all the time. People find me on the internet. I'm not that hard to find. Right. I've unfortunately achieved some other types of notoriety over the years.
So I read.
and I've had, a not the greatest version of the album digitally in my Dropbox for, I think, 15 years. Maybe. I don't even know if Dropbox is that old, but I've had digital copy in Dropbox, and whenever anyone reaches out, I give them the album, and it's pretty cool to hear that, and see it, and have people still interested in it. I definitely never ever thought I'd be on a podcast talking about it.
Well, I'm glad you are.
I definitely never thought a podcast would be conceived around it. It still stands up. It sounds really good.
100%. I'm new to it. I really enjoyed it. I soup to nuts. So it holds up remarkably well, I feel. So you have a lot to be proud of.
Keith, I'm imagining that you probably take a little while for these interviews to get out. You probably shape them and edit them and stuff.
I do.
But in the meantime, the Gen Blue project is going to start happening. Steve had to send copies as part of as part of a pre-announcement. I've heard that it's already gotten out there a little bit.
Oh, right,
and,
right. It was attached to the press release. That's
exactly.
True. Yeah.
And so Adam
press
and I
release?
hear this. Adam hears this like secondhand. Like, wait, what's going on with my band?
Yeah. Guys, I've taken up so much of your time. I don't want to take up any more of it. I could talk for another hour. When is the show? For those Abandoned Albums LA listeners, or within a drivable vicinity.
Sunday, April 28th at the Mayan Bar and Grill at the Aztec Hotel in Monrovia, California.
What?
From 6 to 9. 5:30 to 9. It's this really, really crazy little bar in the middle of, way outside of LA, but still within the confines, in this hotel that looks like a Mayan temple. It's got all kinds of like cool character. It's got full of old ghosts and stuff. And we are definitely
getting weirder by the minute.
We are going to take over that place. S.W. Loudon, a.k.a. Steve's going to be signing his newly released book. A couple guys from Ozma are going to open the show. You know, like, we're huge fans of theirs. And there's going to be all these really amazing bands from back in the day. I'm very excited about it.
Adam, Justin, thank you both. I mean this sincerely. I do really like the record, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk about your career with me. And
likewise, thank you. This is great.
Cool story.
It's an incredible story, and I hope one of you decides to write it down, because it's really cool. Because all the ducks were in a row, except one.
I wrote it down.
You did? Okay.
Yeah,
we got lined up. They got lined up for sure.
Good.
All right,
guys.
Keith, thanks so much.
Thanks so much. I'll drop a note when it goes live, and you can share it on your socials and do all that sort of jazz.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Good.
Great night, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to Adam and Justin for making the time to share the incredible Shufflepuck story with us. Their long, unreleased album will see the light of day this spring, so keep your eyes open for that. In the meantime, be sure to check out the Generation Blue compilation and accompanying oral history book, The Hollywood Geek Rock Scene in the 1990s and 2000s. The complete package drops on Friday, April 26th from Big Stir Records and Spider Pop Records. You can find it at your favorite independent retailer. The compilation has tracks from Baby Lemonade, Campfire Girls, Nerf Herder, and, of course, Shufflepuck, along with many other great bands. Extra big thank yous go out to S.W. Loudon.
This episode of Abandoned Albums was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins. The show was recorded at Thunderlove Studio, where it was engineered by
Daphne Morris,
with help from
Penetration.
Abandoned Albums was edited by
Vic Titball,
with help from
Clem Fandango.
Our theme song is Solo Flight by Charlie Christian. In the opening of the show, the songs you heard were The Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead by XTC, Never Say Never by Romeo Void, and The Walls Came Down by The Call. You can stream all of those artists wherever you stream your favorite music.
original music by Mike Pellegrino.
The songs you heard during this podcast were Why Can't I Be Him? Living a Lie, Small, Where the Hell Is She? And lastly, Fool Like Me. All of these songs can be found on the upcoming Shufflepuck release. Please remember to support independent artists.
If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Grazie.
Bailey Leaf,
Rob Janicki, Mike Pellegrino, Thurina Bella,
Eric Beatner, S.W. Loudon, Ronnie Barnett,
Michael Janicki, Peyton Janicki, and our executive producer,
This is Thunderlove.
Abandoned Albums receives funding from Damon Pharmaceuticals, the makers of Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is the only chewable tablet made to combat stomach unease associated with mediocrity. Taken daily, Ben Affleck can help combat explosive gastrointestinal shame. You can find a multitude of flavors in the incontinence section of your local pharmacy. Ben Affleck, save yourself the embarrassment.
The side effects include dry mouth, headache, anal leakage, muscle soreness, bad decisions, gender confusion, constipation, evil spirit possession, and banality. Use only as directed.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always obediently yours.
Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.
And now, a word from our sponsor.